All right. I believe that we are live.
Indeed.
Hello. Whoever is watching this, or if you go back and watch this stream, this is the first review of the channel, and with us tonight we have two good friends, Ken Palpatine.
Read this book.
That those are his only words, and then another good friend, Marcel, or the Revanchist.
Hello.
So today we'll be talking about the first Aliens versus Predator novel, Prey. Prey was wrote by Steve Perry, who also wrote, if you are familiar with Shadows of the Empire. And Prey serves as a novelization of the comic book, the original Aliens vs. Predator comic book. And this is my first time reading through it. I don't know too much about like the behind the scenes. Ken may have some more insight on it since he seems to be more well versed in it than I.
Indeed.
So Ken, do you have any anything to add to like the behind the scenes aspect of it at least?
Honestly, I don't know much. All I know is that this is supposed to be a novelization of the comic.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know more than that.
You fake fan.
I'm not the Noah of like the Alien versus Predator universe. I don't know all the backroom deals and all the fucking writers, all that shit.
Steve Perry's arguments with Randy Stradley.
It's just crippling addiction.
Well,
from what I know, this book is based on the first 4 issues of Alien versus Predator.
Mm-hmm.
That's collected in the omnibuses. I think there's like 3 omnibuses for the AVP run in Dark Horse.
There's only 2.
Or there's only 2? Okay. So there's only 2, and now who's the fake fan? And this novel is based on the first 4 issues that appear in the first omnibus. Mm. So, yeah.
It was also reprinted in was it the Essential Comics collection. It was a very short-lived trade collections that Dark Horse are doing. And go on.
This was written also with Steve Perry's daughter, Stephanie Perry, which I think is important context.
Indeed. Well, also, Ken, do you know the reason why Dark Horse had to cut short the Essential Comics collections?
Not really. I mean, my assumption is that it just wasn't selling well.
So it's not one person buying them, and it was Ken.
Yeah, probably me. I was the only one buying anything Dark Horse.
He bought out the paper stock.
Yeah. I just bought all the paper. It's in my garage. I have it there.
But I was under the impression it had something to do with the Fox buyout.
That's true.
Because then the rights switched to Marvel.
And now we get the shitty Marvel comics with the stupid ray tracing, stupid faces.
Indeed.
All that cursed art.
Those stories, Star Wars comics.
Those stories, the Marvel stories are good. It's just the art looks like shit.
Unfortunately, the fake somethings. Oh wow. Yeah. Predator issue 1 came out a month ago, Ken? 2 months ago.
It has an interesting premise, I will say.
Mm-hmm.
So now Marvel owns the rights to Predator.
Yes, because Disney acquired Fox.
Yeah, of course, Disney acquired everything. Prey is I'm reading here, and I actually read this when I was reading the reviews of the book after I finished it, just to get a sense of what other people thought of the book. It's the first media to apply the term Yatja.
Yes.
To the Predator race.
Before John Shirley shit all over the lore Forever Midnight.
Do not bring up the horrors of the Hishkute.
That's the only mention he's going to get in the stream. Fuck that book.
But for a basic summary of the book, I suppose would be that it takes place on this world called Ryushi, and there is a colony known as Prosperity Wells, and we are introduced to our main character Michiko Noguchi, who I believe is a struggling leader, and the people at Prosperity Wells don't fully put their faith into her. And throughout the book, she is trying to handle that whole situation with being the leader of the group. And it kind of parallels the other main character, if you will, of the book, Deshande, who is, I would say, our main insight up to the Yajas as the people. And he also has to, handle being a leader and trying to rein in these disobedient Yajas. And then it eventually culminates into the Xenomorphs invading, kind of. And then they, fight them back. And essentially they blow up Prosperity Wells to end the hive. And Deshande passes on, and Noguchi, she just kind of chills by herself, and then she eventually gets on this ship and meets this Yaja that also knew Deshande, and she essentially joins like the hunting party.
She's blooded.
Yes.
At the end of Deshande, blood. He makes her blooded. He, I think, carves his signet into her forehead.
Yes, the lightning bolt signet.
Yeah, and that's how the next predator that shows up knows that she's one of them, even though she's a Uman or
Uman.
And I find it funny because they meant Viklate, the Yaja that she meets, he mentions that she tried saying something in her language, but he just remarked that her accent was awful. And I thought that was a mildly funny scene.
But I think he was shocked at the end that she could even speak any word.
Right.
And he makes the observation, this Viklate, I think.
Viklate, so I pronounce it.
Viklate. He makes the observation that that Deshande would never give her his mark willingly, or sorry, unwillingly. So he must have accepted her as blooded, and if he accepted her as blooded, then Viklate has to accept her too.
Not to spoil too much about that whole Deshande blooding Noguchi, but that's kind of touched on in the other two books in the trilogy. A little bit.
Okay, yeah, that's interesting because I didn't even know the other two books in the trilogy had anything to do with this book. I thought they were just completely random spin-offs.
Oh, no. There's a Noguchi saga.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, if I can just real quick segue and do the whole Noguchi saga of comics and books, we got the original comic and Prey, and then you've got Hunter's Planet, which is like the sequel that it's like a one-off sequel. It doesn't matter, but it's like a fun read. But then you've got Blood Time, introduces the character from the beginning of the comic, Top Knot, who fights Deshande in the beginning. Then you've got The Duel, just kind of like a side story. But at the end of the at some point in the book they mention Marines are gonna come to the planet. Well, that's what happens in The Duel.
Right.
And then you've got War, and that wraps up. Well, and then there's another comic written more recently, which was 3 World War, and that's the final sequel to the Noguchi saga.
And Hunter's Planet is a alternative sequel to Prey, if I'm not mistaken, right, Ken?
It is. It was written before Prey, or not Prey, before Matt Wilkins' moment. It was written before War was officially, before it was made, basically.
Okay. Right. So which one is the canonical sequel? Is it War?
War, yes.
Okay.
But don't forget Aliens Berserker, another book wrote by S.D.
Yeah,
Perry.
there's a whole separate plot line in War that has to deal with a bunch of Weyland-Yutani grunts who are part of the Suicide Squad that go around taking out infested locations. And there's a whole book about that. And there's the plot of that side plot in War won't make any sense if you haven't read Berserker, which is a comic and then a novelization.
Right. So the order of novels would be Prey, Berserker, then War.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm looking here. It was written by, I guess, Stephanie Perry as well.
Yeah.
Stephanie Danielle Perry. She's written quite a bit in this saga. She wrote The Female War. That's an Aliens novel. Then Aliens vs. Predator Prey. She co-wrote Aliens Labyrinth, Aliens Berserker, Aliens vs. Predator War, Aliens Criminal Enterprise, and then Skeld's Keep, a short story.
And If It Bleeds, the Predator collection, short story collection.
Yeah, Predator, If It Bleeds. I see that here.
I believe it's like a medieval time story that she writes. I think that's
the Skeld's Keep is a good one.
Yeah.
Vikings.
Oh, Vikings.
Yeah.
I could have sworn it was like a medieval one, but
that's
Vikings sounds interesting.
The whole medieval one is Aliens Phalanx.
Oh yeah.
It has to do with like aliens and like I don't think it's it's some made up medieval kingdom, basically.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Well, I guess we would be moving on to the talking points in themselves, since we've kind of given like a quick, brief summary.
An overview.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, let's get into it.
Let's go. Let's do it.
The Alien Queen's ready.
Ready to lay more eggs.
That's right.
But, more ovomorphs.
The ovos.
The ovo.
But the writing style of it all. Would any y'all like to chime in first? Or?
Oh, you can start. Oh, actually, real quick, subscribe to Titus's channel, like and subscribe.
Smash
all that
like
shit.
button.
Smash that like button. Smash that like button. Fucking, if you don't, you're an asshole. I'm just kidding. You're not an asshole. Just ignore what I said. Just smash the like button. Subscribe to Titus's channel, and yeah.
And subscribe to Marcel and listen to his
if you have to
readings.
subscribe to one.
Oh yeah, subscribe to Marcel as well. Subscribe to the Revanchist.
Subscribe to Titus, or else I'll chain myself to a tree and starve myself until the authorities come and remove me.
He's going to malnourish himself.
Yeah.
But the writing style. I quite enjoy Steve Perry's writing style, and like this is the first thing by Steve Perry that I've read. It's kind of excited me for Shadows of the Empire. I'm not sure if the prose reads the same way, but I like how Steve Perry, when there's multiple characters in one scene, he will tell the events of what just happened through the lens of each different character. And it sheds a different perspective, and it doesn't feel grating. And maybe in some fight scenes, maybe. But for the most part, I find it quite well. And I just like the way like he intermingles like slurs, and it conveys like the author, the omniscient voice is like kind of having a voice of his own, like he's like talking. I'm not sure if y'all got that same feeling, but what do y'all think for the writing style, at least?
I think it flowed very well. It did feel a bit simplistic, but it wasn't like childish. It didn't feel like I was like, oh yeah, dad lecturing and telling story time to his fucking child. No, it just felt like it's simple.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if either of you felt this way, but I did feel like towards the end, like the latter half of the book, when all the action's going on, all the xenomorphs are getting killed, everybody's dying. I just felt like some of the deaths get repetitive. It's like, oh, there's only so many ways you can describe a xenomorph's head or limbs being blown off.
Yeah,
a lot of spinning
a lot
backwards.
of spinning and brains falling on the floor, smoky acid rising from the ground.
Yeah, I thought the writing style was easy to follow. But like you said, Ken, not childish whatsoever.
It wasn't Kevin J. Anderson.
Shots fired.
I like Kevin.
Yeah, fair enough. No, I did think, however, the different perspectives of the same scene, it was a little jarring at first until I understood what he was doing.
Mm.
Uh, then I liked it, but then sort of closer to the end of the novel, I thought it was a bit repetitive.
Hmm.
Uh,
During the lecture?
yeah, yeah, because like there was a point in the novel where he's showing the different perspectives, like closer to the middle, but it's he's using I say he, but it's really like him and his daughter. They're using
Right.
enough language to make it more interesting, right? They're not really repeating the same thing, right? Because it's being
Right.
said you have two different alien perspectives, right? You have like the human perspective, and then you have maybe like say like Deshande's perspective some of the times, right?
Right.
And so he approaches the world in a much different way than say someone like Chico, right?
Hmm.
Noguchi. And so it was interesting enough that it kept my attention, but I think as a conceit near the end of the book, it was starting to get a little repetitive, but by no means was it unenjoyable. So it's just
Hmm.
it kind of it's not gonna make finest literature of the year for me, but I still enjoyed it, the writing style overall.
That's fair. That's fair.
Yeah, pretty solid.
Um, Give me 1 second. I need to see something. So the next talking point would be the yachts themselves and how this is like really the first like. Well, correct me if I'm wrong, Ken. Is this the first insight into their culture?
Yes.
Okay,
First
and
in
so
depth, everything.
all right, because in like the Predator movies, we aren't given much. We just know that they are
Hmm.
alien hunters. That they seek out trophies.
Yeah.
They have somewhat a code of honor. They don't, from what I observed in Predator 2, like they don't attack children. They don't attack like defenseless. That they can't fight back.
Hmm.
Um, Woman bearing children. Um, Things like that. And they have sort of a respect for the humans as seen at the end of Predator 2 when the elder of the Lost Tribe hands Mike Harrigan the flintlock as like, kind of a gift for besting the city hunter. So, and then we have this like this insight into their culture. We now know that they're called Yajas, and we know that they have a rank system of unblooded and blooded, and I find it very interesting. And the clan leaders that try reining in, their students, and most of them do it by like killing their students, like having a demonstration, versus the our main like insight into their culture, Deshande, who tries to give a second chance because he wants to reign differently than the rest of the clan leaders. He wants to demonstrate that you don't have to just like put up a facade of like being hard
Hmm.
to instruct good teaching. Um, and I find it like quite interesting, the especially the blooding thing. And I really like the whole respect for the humans, like the humans or humans as they call them in their language. Um, like they're one of their ultimate prey. Like they are taught at a young age that humans are like cowardly, deceptive, things like that. But at the same time, they're one anticipated to be one of their greatest preys, along with the xenomorph. It's a very interesting angle that unfortunately the Alien vs Predator movie didn't really build off of, and it kind of just said that the humans were servants to them and that they were cattle to breed their ultimate prey, the xenomorphs. And I'm not really a fan of that angle, but that's a bit unrelated. Um,
Hmm.
Ken, how do you feel about the insight into the Yaja?
I think their insight into their culture in the book makes the Yautja much more than just bestial like killers who just hunt for glory and trophies. They have their own set of rules,
For me,
and that's
that's
how, no.
oh yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
The last thing I'll say is just they At times, Deshaun, they felt a lot more human than a lot of the actual human characters, because some of them were stereotypes. You had Ackland, who's the corporate bastard. You had
Right.
Hiroki, who's like the good standing company dude. You got the two space truckers, Tom and Scott, who are just just assholes. Blue collar fucking assholes.
Well, I wouldn't say Tom's really like that. Scott more so, yeah.
Yeah.
But Tom, I think Tom's a bit more level headed. And also something that I picked up on when I read a bit of the comic is that I'm getting off topic, but I'm just gonna say this quickly and let Marcel give his perspective. They make Scott a lot more intelligent in the comic, and that's just really all I have to say.
Yeah, I I have my issues with Scott and that whole thing that occurs that we can get into maybe a little later. But going back to the Yacha culture, for me, I think that's the main selling feature of this book, is getting an insight into the predators, right? And what really interests me is how it raises more questions, because there are several instances in the book where they're almost compared to primitives, like human primitives, like primitive societies. There's one scene in the book where they're dancing around a fire
with the heads.
With the head, like the severed human heads. And I forget, I think it might be like Machiko who's observing, or someone.
Yeah, on the screen.
On the screen, and she makes the observation that it reminds her of like primitive human tribes and stuff like that. But then it's how does this primitive tribe create these advanced spaceships and weapons, right? Like what does their society look like? So as much as it shows us a glimpse into their culture and their civilization, it also raises more questions as to like, what does their world look like? How do they function as a society? Like all these things that I want to know more about, because this novel's kind of given us a glimpse of it, but it really only scratches the surface.
Yeah,
fair.
Speaking of Yautja culture, we got to talk about like the main point is their language. How did you guys feel about the language?
I'll let Marcel.
I was reading a review that said that Steve and Stephanie overused the Yautja language in their book, and that was kind of a turnoff for the person who was writing the review. I didn't find that it was overused at all. I thought it was used appropriately. So I don't agree with that. I thought it was really cool. Some of the words were just absolutely nonsensical and really difficult to try and pronounce out loud. I'm not even going to bother. But like Thway, for example.
Thway, like blood.
Yeah. I really like how that was used, and some other words too. So I think overall, I thought it was really good usage of the language. And I think I read somewhere that they basically created that language from scratch for this book. Or at least maybe they took some words from the comic. I don't know. I haven't read the comic.
The comic doesn't have any language. It's just guttural text boxes.
There you go. Right. So, I mean, I think that's an interesting addition to the lore, and I appreciate it.
What about well, I guess I'll go then. The language, it certainly isn't fleshed out to the lengths of like Mandoa and Star Wars, where it's like Karen Travis lays out like a whole grammatical usage of each word,
or Klingon,
right? But I do think it's a very cool inclusion on how that it adds more depth than what we hear in the movies, where it's just like clicking and howls and roars. But it's like, actual things like Thayday, Thway, some other words I don't even remember. Uman, I guess.
Clitnip, I guess the alcoholic drink.
Right. What was the hard meat Cayenne a meta?
Cayenne a meta?
Yeah. Cayenne a meta.
And I forgot the name for the human. The soft meat.
Soft meat.
Peyote?
Peyote,
I think.
I don't know. But it's that I think it's good. They added that layer of depth. It makes it more immersive in a way, where it makes it I don't know, it just adds life to these alien hunters. Um, Not sure what else to say about it really.
Their language definitely separates them from the xenomorphs.
Truly, because the xenomorphs, they're just like the hive mind, the
They're just
primal
bugs.
beasts. They're just literally bugs. They're beasts versus like the Yaja, who are people. But what about you, Ken? What is your take on the language?
I think it's very interesting. I was surprised. Like, the first time reading it way back when, I was surprised at like the amount of use, like the usage of the words in the book. I was like, damn, this is so cool. I want more of this.
Right, right.
And like I said, it just differentiates the Outer from the xenomorphs.
Mm.
Yeah, I'll say the xenomorphs are depicted as having no intelligence whatsoever, other than maybe like a hunter's instinct.
Mm-hmm.
But
Right.
then I think there's a part in the book where they, I want to say, like outsmart Machiko or Deshande.
Yeah, they outsmart Deshande when they one of the drones like pretends to be like the queen and like makes Deshande waste his last burner shot.
That's right.
Yes, yes,
So
yes.
the drone comes through first, and
Mm-hmm.
that makes me think that they are intelligent, because I don't think that animals have the know-how to strategize like that. So I don't know. I don't know where do we stand on this. Are they intelligent or not?
I mean, me having read like a lot of the other books, the xenomorphs are definitely an intelligent species, but they're not intelligent in the way like normal sentient beings are. They have a baser instinct that drives them, but they can do like basic things. Especially in the novel Labyrinth, there's a whole section of that book that goes into like xenomorph intelligence, and it's a pretty disgusting part of the book. I'm gonna say.
Okay, fair, but they're not intelligent enough to build starships, because that would require them to have some kind of civilization.
No.
But I will say one thing about that scene, though, Marcel. I thought that I could understand like the xenomorphs applying tactics in that scene, but I thought the reason why Deshande mistook the drone for the queen is because how dark the Lecter was, and that his biomass couldn't see through it. Or maybe I'm wrong on that. Maybe he could see with his biomask. I'm not sure.
I thought the way it was written indicated that he believed it to be a feint,
Right.
like a fake out.
Right.
You're probably right, but like he at least perceived it to be a tactic that was used against him.
Mm-hmm.
And Ken saying that there is other novels that touch upon their intelligence, at least to the extent that they're able to plan and strategize. There is no animal on Earth, as far as I know, that's capable of doing that. Maybe like higher intelligence animals like dolphins might be able to do something like that.
If I may go into like a bit of a segue, there's a short story that's basically written from the perspective of a scientist documenting like the xenomorph and like behavior. And there's a part in the comic where the xenomorphs, they use like the bodies of their own fallen drones and like even the prey that they kill, like what's left over of it after the birth of the chest burster. They use it to build the hive.
That's interesting. But in the movies themselves, they apply like some level of tactics, like how in Aliens, the second movie, they blend in with like the walls of the hive, and then they snatch the Marines up unexpectedly because they blend in, like their black bodies blend in with like the material that makes up the hive.
Yeah.
I also know this book doesn't really go into this aspect, but there is a big, especially in the Alien novels, especially the Earth War trilogy, there's a big link between the drones and the Queen, like almost like a telepathic link. And humans, not to spoil too much, but humans who've been in contact with xenomorphs, specifically like the Queen, have like a connection almost. Like it calls to them in their mind. That's why these people have like nightmares.
Do they ever explain the origin of the aliens? Because I know like some of the movies do, like Prometheus and
it's
yes.
done vaguely
Alien
in
Covenant.
Prometheus and Covenant.
It isn't really like this grand explanation. It's just xenomorphs. They just exist. They were
Right.
of course they had to come from somewhere, but like they just exist like any other race in the galaxy. There was no like that's why I don't like Alien Covenant's retcon that it was a genetic experiment.
Well, the thing about Alien Covenant is that the protomorph that David created that from like what's her name, Shaw's ovaries, like that's not really the full xenomorph. Like that's just like an offshoot of it in a way. Because like as you can see in the murals in Prometheus, like they it's like the xenomorphs are present in the murals, so it can't be that David created them, but he created something that is roughly like a xenomorph.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let me ask you, what's the canonicity of these books? Are they canon in and of themselves, kind of like the Star Trek Litverse, or are they canon to the movies, or are they just basically like non-canon?
The books are canon to themselves, but not canon to the films.
Right. Because a lot of stuff will be
do they
different.
directly contradict any of the films, other than maybe like the newest Predator films? And
Not that I remember.
Okay.
It kind of works on like a case by case basis, where some trilogies have canonicity with the movies and others don't. Like the Earth War trilogy is a sequel to Aliens, and that's it. That's all it's supposed to be. Whereas like the Tim Levin's trilogy references the Predator films and acknowledges that they exist in the same universe.
Right.
So it's more like, again, like I said, case by case basis.
Yeah, I mean that's fair. Like I don't even think the films are really canonical to themselves, right? Like obviously Alien, those first 4 films flow from one another.
Mm-hmm.
You can make the argument that Prometheus and Alien Covenant operate in the same universe fine, but the Predator films, like does the Predator and Predators occur and Prey occur in the same universe as Predator 1 and 2? I mean,
I would
assume so unless proven otherwise.
Okay. What about
there
AVP?
is if I may interrupt real quick, there is a novel, Predator Hunting Ground, the novel Predator Stalking Shadows. It ties into like the first movie. And Arnold's character comes back, but
Dylan, you son of a bitch.
Dylan, you son of a bitch.
Yeah. All right, that's cool.
Yeah.
Just thankfully those AVP movies got canned. I don't know. I just wish they took a better direction after the first one. Requiem was just but on to the next talking point, I suppose. That would be handling of the general characters in the story, like the human ones, like Machiko, Hiroki, Ackland. So I guess I'll let's do it in reverse again. Like let's Marcel kick it off.
Oh man, I don't know. I mean, like Machiko, I thought was a compelling character. We didn't really they did delve into her psyche a bit. Like there's one point in the book I remember where she's basically about to break down because it's just too much to handle, but she kind of pulls herself together, and after that point she's on board, and she's kind of I don't know that that's entirely realistic. Like I get pulling yourself together in the moment, but I would expect that she'd still have like panic attacks along the way or something, or doubts along the way. But it's like after she pulls herself together and she decides, I'm gonna fight back. That's it. Like there's no more fear or hesitation that we see from her, at least none that I saw. And I just don't know that that's realistic, but I liked her character a lot. I liked, the other characters are kind of, they're stock archetypes. like
Mhm,
Hiroki
got
and
the
Ackland. We have the Revna doctors. I did feel spoilers when Dr. Revna, was it Miriam Revna? Is that that was the
Miriam,
wife?
that's
Yeah.
the wife.
When she died, I did feel some investment in her character, so that was a sad death.
mhm,
Just because we had gotten to know her a bit, and she kind of she was the first to form a bond with Deshande.
Mm.
I hated it. Was Scott? I think his last name, is it Conover, or is that Tom?
Scott Conover.
Yeah.
Yeah, Scott Conover. I mean, he sexually assaults, or tries to sexually assault Machiko, and there's just like no repercussions.
Yeah.
There's no repercussions. They're
Oh, he was
basically
drunk.
yeah. I don't think they would have gotten away with a scene like that if that novel was written, today.
Oh,
Right.
absolutely. There'd be like fucking all the woke crowd would be like, this movie hates women or blah, blah, blah.
Their ship is called the Lecter, right?
The
I would
Lecter.
expect, I
Yeah.
would expect the Lecter. It's a big enough ship that it would have a brig.
Mm.
Like, after something like that, he should be thrown in the brig and left there, in my opinion.
Well, I mean, Tom, like he was dragging him back, and by the time like they got back onto it, like that's when they noticed all the Renfus. They was just
Right.
kind of laying on the ground, and then they heard hissing, and then something wet was on their necks or something.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, I guess you could say he got his comeuppance. He got impregnated and died.
Yeah, he
Yeah.
did get his comeuppance, but then so did Tom. It cheapened it a bit, because it's like, well, they both did, so it's not
Right.
like really like it would have been kind of funnier if he was the only one that was infected and impregnated with the alien. That would have been kind of, I think, his just desserts in that situation.
Mhm.
But ultimately, like, I thought the characters were pretty good. The characterizations were good. Just maybe, and it's a short novel, so I get why. But I think the character that we get to know the best might be Deshande.
Mhm.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Especially.
Well, for the characters for me, I love Machiko, and I love her just because the whole leader thing, and it's just interesting to watch, and like her bond with Hiroki, and Hiroki's like this supportive figure to her, whatnot, and because everyone else is just kind of like they're like what's the word? They're like halfway with her in a way.
Mhm.
They're not really like fully on board with her until like things get real, and it's like desperate times that there's xenomorphs, there's hunters killing everyone. It's just so they have no choice but to like let her lead, like let her take the lead. But I just like how Steve Perry or Stefani Perry, both of them, I should say. I just like how they write the parallels between Machiko and Deshande. And one of my favorite parallels is the names themselves, like Noguchi. It's very early on in the book, but they mentioned that Noguchi's father had killed himself, right? So the mom remarried because she thought that the last name Noguchi brought shame or something like that. But Machiko still bore the name despite the fact that her mother had already remarried. And it parallels with Deshande, whose name is mocking because it's Little Knife, and
Different knife.
a different knife.
That's so that the one you're saying is the name that he gave to
The
Noguchi.
Machiko, yeah, different knife, and I forget the reasoning why he was called a different knife. It was because he had a broken tusk, or
Oh yeah, it's because he had a broken tusk and he just refused to have it regrown.
yeah.
Everyone was like, "Yeah, look at this fucking asshole."
So Yatja like mockingly called him Deshande, but he embraced the name, correct? Yeah.
Also, I like the one aspect of Deshande's character. Like he intentionally restricts himself to only his Naginata, his wrist blade burner, to the
The
unique code of
Giga
honor scene. Yeah.
One thing I don't like about Deshande is just that like most of the book he is like knocked out cold, just laying in like the lab. But when he does wake up, that things like get real,
Oh yeah, shit gets real.
right?
Yeah,
But
you think
Mhm.
shit gets real before he wakes up. You think it basically when Dr. Revna, the husband, runs
oh
into
god,
the predators for the Yacha for the first time,
right?
and
Oh,
then
yeah.
they attacking the colony. But shit really gets real when Deshande wakes up and decides to like set things straight.
Exactly. And breaks to Shinde's spine.
Oh, that's such a great scene.
I also like that throughout the latter half of the book, Deshande constantly refers to all his students as like stupid and dumb. Like these my students are so short sighted.
Well, besides that one student that accidentally was killed towards the end, because remember, he tried opening the door, and like, if I'm not mistaken,
Oh
Machiko
yeah,
just like
Noguchi shoots him in the face.
instinctively just shot, and Deshande just looked at her for like a minute, just like, bruh.
I feel like that predator that would allow themselves to be killed like at such a point is just not worthy of like being a blooded warrior. So that's why Deshande is like, indifferent.
Perhaps.
My understanding was none of them were blooded, right?
Yeah,
Not
Yeah,
even
they're all
not even
unblooded.
Shinde.
They're all
Yeah.
unblooded.
Yeah.
They're just young, very young teenagers. And this is one thing I find funny. I told Candice and like through DMs that like when I was rewatching the Aliens vs Predator movie, like the hunting party that we follow in the movie, they are all unblooded. They're like roughly the same age as like Tashinde and the goons, whatnot. But
Yeah.
they act more sensible than Tashinde. Like Tashinde just like he is so arrogant and just so like bloodthirsty. But you have like hang on, like literally most of them all died in the Alien vs Predator movie. But they had more sense at least. I kind of went on a tangent. Like the other characters, Hiroki, I like him. I was very sad when he ended up getting killed. Who else?
I kind of wish that whole
Mhm.
scene in the book was longer, like him fighting Tashinde and the other Yacha.
Right.
Because that scene plays almost exactly like it does in the comic.
And just a static, and then we just see later on his head's on a spike.
Yeah,
But
unfortunate.
then there's Acklin, and just like Acklin is just like I wish he died. Like I was so annoyed when like what happened to Scott and Tom, but nothing happens to Acklin. It's like this dude. He more or less is one of the reasons why these events are even playing out in the first place because he told a lie, but nothing happens to him. Nothing, and I'm just like, bro, like.
I mean, as much as I wanted like him to get his comeuppance, I feel like in the corporate world, it's like he just saved his own ass. That's like the
Right.
reality of it.
Bro saved his own skin.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I thought he was a bit cartoonish, that character, but I think that was the point too. They needed
He's even more cartoonish in the comic. He looks like a fucking Texas oil baron.
Yeah. They needed a minor antagonist to kind of carry the first part of the book, right?
Right.
Mm-hmm. I guess we can segue to our next or our next point, the Perry pervert moments.
No.
Yeah, I mean, well, we already talked a bit. We already talked about, I guess I talked about the sexual assault. And,
yeah.
There's other stuff too. You guys can talk about it.
Oh God.
I mean, for one, all the predator, young unblooded Yautja and the hunting party are all described as being like super horny, and they just want to get out there and start killing. They all this fucking rage, and they just want to tear shit up. And there's the infamous Deshande being thrown across the room by his mate during their lovemaking.
Of course.
But we don't see that. Like
we don't see. Yeah,
yeah,
he talks about it.
it.
Yeah.
He just talks about it. Yeah, but Then there's the whole insult for the Yaoche insult for woman, which literally translates to child maker.
Dang.
Damn.
But
I mean, Steve Perry,
Hmm.
he's kind of known, I guess, in Star Wars circles for Shadows of the Empire has some really questionable scenes in it, including one scene, I think, where Prince Shizor tries to take advantage of Leia.
Yeah, that scene.
Using his pheromones. Yeah, and I don't know. I'm sensing a pattern a bit. But what's even creepier in this case is that he wrote this. It was his daughter's an adult, but he wrote this with his adult daughter.
Yeah.
I can't ever imagine in my life coming to I have a daughter, and I can't even ever imagine writing a book with her that would include half the stuff that he put in there. So
yeah, it's just weird.
Yeah, it's just he must have a really comfortable relationship with her.
And they just
how do you even begin to discuss those plot points with one another? I don't know.
I mean, you think it's bad in like Shadows of the Empire and this book. Like, wait till you read the Earthport trilogy. Oh man.
Did he also write that with Stephanie?
Yeah, he wrote the Female War with his Stephanie. And there's like a ton of explicit sex shit in that book, not to mention the other two novels, which are just written by only Steve.
Yeah, tell Marcel about I'm not sure.
Do you want me to just tell you like the sex shit that's in?
Tell him about the egg. Tell him about the warden at least.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna talk about General Tommy A. Spears, the fucking horniest Marine alive. Okay, so there's this. So basically, the plot of the book, he's at Nightmare Asylum. Our main characters are they are stranded in space, but the ship they're on is automated. It's taking them to a random location. They end up on this military base where General Spears runs the base like he's a paranoid dictator, basically. Anybody who disagrees with him, he just feeds, he uses them as hosts for the xenomorphs. And there's a scene where he's going into the hive to admire, because he wants to train the aliens to retake Earth. Minor spoilers, Earth gets taken over by aliens. That's why it's called the Earth War trilogy. But anyways, Tommy Spears, there's a scene where he's kneeling, he's like in front of one of the eggs, like rubbing it with his hands, and he gets an erection. He gets a fucking stiffy. And then he goes on this whole rant about him having a sexual encounter with his drill instructor, which is like 3 or 4 pages long, but you can read that. I'm not going to go into detail about that.
I guess I get wanting to give your character a gimmick or something like that, right? But I don't know that these novels need anything like that. I don't know that they need sexual reference. And I'm not, and by no means am I a prude or anything like that, but I just don't. I don't think that the novels really benefit from that, because people are reading these books because they want to see predators and aliens and humans just beat and kill each other up.
Yeah,
they don't care about. I don't know. I just think that it veers too far from what these books are intended to be.
Yeah.
No, to be fair, like if you view it from like this lens, I'm not saying that like it justifies it, but like you consider like the alien stuff at least. H.R. Geiger, like the guy that designed his xenomorph, like a lot of his art deals with like a lot of sexual things. So I'm not sure if that's like they're connected in any way.
I don't think it's connected to H.R. Geiger's work. I think Steve Perry just does a running trope of him just being really horny, wanting to write sex shit like in his books.
Right. For people who may be watching, you may want to explain. H.R. Geiger created the look of the alien xenomorphs.
Yes. Great artist.
Did you know that he was originally tapped to help Alejandro Jodorowsky make a Dune movie?
For real?
Really?
There's a documentary called Jodorowsky's Dune, and Geiger is in it. He gives interviews in that documentary. He was originally hired to do the concept art. I think what happened was when that project was scrapped, because Jodorowsky spent all of his money basically on pre-production stills and a storyboard. He wanted to make like an 18-hour Dune movie or something like that. It was crazy.
Jesus.
Yeah.
18 hours, damn.
Yeah, but what happened was I think Geiger repurposed some of that work to create the Xenomorph.
Huh.
So well worth watching. I think you might. It used to be on Amazon Prime. It might still be. It's called Jodorowsky's Dune, the greatest movie that never was, or something like that.
Or so we think, or so we thought, or
Yeah.
One of those gimmicky titles.
and
Well, I suppose this will leads into our
Wait. Before we move off this topic, do you think that this novel suffered from
the sex stuff.
from the perversion?
no, not at all.
No,
That may sound weird.
it didn't add, but I wouldn't say it detracted.
I agree
It's
with
kind
that.
of like stagnant, if anything, just like a middle ground.
I think my biggest issue was just imagining this guy writing it with his daughter. But other than that, like,
Yeah, it's just a bit weird. I'm like, okay, it didn't add, but it didn't take away.
yeah,
I feel like the universe is mature enough where we can have people like fucking each other or whatever, but it doesn't add anything. Like two
Right.
characters having a fling is not going to add anything, especially if that person gets killed off 2 pages later by a xenomorph.
yeah. Like I'm just gonna use the example again of Conover trying to make a pass at Machiko, and I just don't think that. Well, ultimately, that was used to describe how Machiko felt towards Conover, but they had such little interaction in the book that it didn't even really matter that they had to establish that dynamic between them. Like it didn't really add anything to the book. I thought
Yeah.
it didn't take anything away, but it didn't really add anything. Now, if their interactions were much more prominent, then I could see a scene like that having purpose, because then it would explain, why they hate each other, or why she hates him, or maybe why he hates her, and that would create an interesting, compelling, dramatic dynamic. But that
For sure.
that wasn't really in the book. So, and it might have been, but again, it's a short book.
There's kind of that relationship that Hicks and Neuter, Billy and Wilkes have in the Earth War trilogy.
Yeah.
That's kind of what they wanted to do in this book, but couldn't.
Can I ask you a question about the Earth War trilogy?
Yeah, you may.
Hicks and Newton. Does it just pretend that Alien 3 doesn't happen?
It doesn't pretend. Oh, Alien 3 wasn't made by the time of when the comics were coming out. It came out after, and they had to change all the names of the characters.
Okay, because I thought that Hicks and Newt died in cryosleep.
That actually is game Aliens Colonial Marines, I'm sure you know. That's canon to the movies, so Hicks doesn't actually die in like Alien 3. It's someone else in the cryotube.
Oh, okay.
So like in both continuities, Hicks never dies. And like in the game, he has like a brooding vendetta against Weyland-Yutani.
Right.
But that's a whole other can of worms. But yes, the Earth War trilogy, the comics, the books, that was all supposed to be the original sequel to the Alien 2, until Alien 3 came along and just completely screwed all that up.
I guess they just didn't have enough money to do something like the Earth War trilogy.
Definitely. There's a lot of weird stuff that could be in those books that could be chalked up to them not having the budgetary resources.
Well, I was gonna say like the only thing I think it adds, like that scene, like the attempted rape, like it just kind of like cements like the personality of like Scott in a way.
Yeah, he's just a working Joe.
He's a working, just like a schmuck womanizer.
Yeah.
Now the Lecter had more than Scott and Tom on it, right? It had like an entire crew.
Yes.
Yeah, it had a whole
They
crew.
mentioned that they don't name them, but they mentioned like that most of the crew had died when the Xenomorphs showed up. So there was like a body of like people on there.
One thing that was weird about the Lecter, and I may just have brain leaked and missed this part. I thought it was ground. I thought it was on the ground.
It is.
It was on the ground,
but it explodes in Atmo, I think.
No. That's like the big like cargo processor that they like have it just nuke the colony. They bring it from orbit and just like nuke the whole planet.
Oh, okay. Right. I got them confused. That's why. Yeah. Okay. The cargo barge. I remember. Yeah.
It's like the Lecter's like a commercial towing ship, kind of like the Nostromo from the first movie, and you have like all the cargo and stuff.
That's right, because the whole point is for people who have read the book. Machiko escapes in a escape pod, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I guess the other thing that confused me was that I thought that they were the colonists were being they were holed up in Prosperity Wells, but I guess they were off-site because Prosperity Wells gets basically obliterated.
Yeah, they like most of them left.
Yeah, they
Right.
left to the desert, and
That's
they set
right.
up like a remote camp.
All right. Thanks for clearing that.
Also, Marcel, you haven't read the comic yet. I know Titus, you read the beginning, but like,
Yeah,
how do
just
you
issue 0.
how do you compare the monologue with Tom and Scott in the beginning of the book to the comic?
How I compare it?
Yeah.
I'd say that the novel, I think it really just that was like one thing that they kind of had a trade off for, because the trade off really is that in the comic we get Scott and Tom in their like philosophical discussion about like the ethics of just pillaging worlds, colonizing what you want.
Mm-hmm.
And it boils down to like a debate of survival of the fittest. But the imagery that's being shown is the Yabja, and we're seeing like actions of Yabja that somewhat parallel what they're talking about, like how like a bully being in control, and then it shows Top Knot fighting Deshande, supposedly for power. I maybe not. I have no clue, but so we kind of get that. We get a whole philosophical discussion about like human nature in the comic with imagery of the Yaoja and their deeds. While in the book, it trades off that. So instead of having just, Yaoja fighting, we cut down the philosophical discussion and we explore the Yaoja. So was it worth it? I think it was, but if you were to cram in both of them, it could maybe able to work, but I'm not sure if it would come off as too much, because there's not a lot of action that was happening, and that whole discussion is just essentially them sitting at their with the controls,
Mm-hmm.
and they're just talking to each other in like chairs. So as a scene, you would just be reading dialogue after dialogue. So there's not much action that could happen. So I think that's also part of the reason why they cut it off so we could have an insight into the Yajas.
Yeah, there's definitely a trade-off there.
Right. What about you then, Kim?
I still personally prefer the comic over the novel, but I think again, you're right. You can't have your cake and eat it too. You have to make sacrifices have to be made, and I feel like having more insight into Deshande's character and the Yaocha as a whole was arguably better for the story in the context of the novel versus the comic.
Mm.
So yeah, I think you're right, Titus.
Well,
yeah, I was hoping to read the comic before we started this stream today, but I just never really got around to it. I did look at the first few pages of the first issue, and I already know I'm going to like it just based on the art style. So.
Yeah.
I suggest reading the issue 0 first, because the issue 0, it goes over like what we're talking about. It's where the whole Scott and Tom philosophical discussion takes place.
Yeah, I was reading the omnibus collection. I think is in it. So
yeah,
perfect.
Wunderbar. But I was gonna ask this because I had wrote it down as like one of the points, but I wasn't gonna obligate you to, Marcel, because I wasn't gonna burden you with watching the movie again. But how well did you see the first Alien vs. Predator movie?
Long time ago. I actually own a box set, and it comes with Predator 1 and 2. The the first 4 Alien films and also AVP 1 and 2.
Nice.
Nice.
I was gonna ask how well is your memory on that? Like if we could generate some form of discussion about it.
I mean, you guys take the lead and I'll jump in where I can. It's been a
Sure.
while. The brain leak is real.
Marcel turning into Matt Wilkins. He's going to become the next Matt.
I
just
only
didn't want to
a
burden
few
him
years
watching an
younger
okay
than him,
movie.
so it's coming.
I think I'll just start by saying that Scar's character in the movie is supposed to be the analog for Deshande, despite him being a youngster.
Right. I don't know. It's just that I'm not sure if a real adaptation could work because like the Yautjas.
I mean, we had a script for it, but
right,
it's not canned.
but it's
Unfortunately,
just like in the movie that we're given like the final product, at least like the Yautjas are just what we know them as, like from the Predator movies. Like there is no depth for them because they don't. There's no subtitles to illustrate what they're saying. They're just like they just do their same hissing growls.
I mean, you could be argued it's kind of lazy because they just sound like tigers.
Oh yeah. Also, upon my rewatch, I will say they do overuse the stock sound effect of like the lion roar, but they also do have like the clicking at times. At specific times, they do the clicking sound.
It's we overused after a point. Like I get it, but I guess one thing I will say about the movie versus like the comic is that the film just cherry picks like ideas from the original source material, and whether to its benefit or detriment, it's just the final product is just an amalgamation of ideas versus like an original product.
Right.
That's too bad if you think about it, because I think that this story would make a perfect film.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think AVP was made in like the early 2000s, so clearly they're aware that the source material is out there. And I think you said that there was a script.
Yeah. Mr. H Reviews did a video on the original script they made, which has like the characters from it. It has Noguchi, Deshande, Hiroki. I can send that to you later. You can
please
watch
do.
it.
I think that would have gone down a lot better than the AVP movie.
And in the original script, there's a cool moment during their escape from like the hive. There's this part in the original like script where Deshande actually uses a pulse rifle to kill one of the xenomorphs.
Yeah,
pulse rifle.
That would have been cool.
Indeed. But man, it's just like I don't know, because I talked about it earlier in the stream. Like they present the angle that humans they're not even like on their radars like good prey. They're just like servants. They're just cattle to breed the xenomorphs.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I talked about this with Ken as well, that in the Predator 2 novelization, they add a different layer of context to the scene where the Elder, the Lost Tribe, hands Mike Harrigan the flintlock. In the novel, they suggest that the reason why he hands him the flintlock is not out of it being a gift, but as a reminder to what the Predators think of humans as like primitive, outdated. And I don't really like the whole angle, like the Predators that just view themselves like wholly above the humans and not have like this mutual respect.
Right. That's a funny contrast to Prey. It's like Deshande has like a respect for humans,
right?
And it's widely known throughout their culture that the Yautja are they consider humans to be like the deadliest prey,
right?
Next to xenomorphs.
But in the novelization, like its context or that it hands for why he gave him the flintlock, it contradicts. Well, obviously it came out before the comic 1718, but it contradicts like the whole deal behind 1718, because the Elder, he acknowledges the fact that what was his name, Borsellini, was the pirate,
Andolini.
He acknowledges that he gave it to him as a dying gift. So in response, the Elder throws off what I believe to be like a ceremonial sword, and then he hands it to him, his dead body, and says, "Take it." with like the
Yeah.
voice modulator. So
Yeah.
the elder, he can pit two and two together and acknowledge the fact that it was a gift. So when he passes on to Mike Harrigan, it's supposed to have that same value. But the novelization, we're just supposed to believe that, oh, bro, you're weak, bro. Like, take this gun. It's a symbol that your race of people, you're just weak, primitive,
I
outdated.
just feel that's pretty out of character.
Right.
There's like doing that whole like, oh, like look how weak you are, look how small you are compared to us. We're just out of character for like the Yautja culture as a whole. I mean,
Right.
And also, like you mentioned in the novelization, Mike Harrigan doesn't even kill the Predator. The
Yeah.
Elder kills him.
Like
So that makes that scene retroactively worse.
like the city hunter, like he still survives, and he just like he taps his neck facing the elder, and just like the elder just activates his wrist gauntlet and just like beheads him.
It's silly.
But I guess it makes sense because, like, you know, sometimes when they're bested in the hunt, like they want to like die. It's like how the jungle hunter.
Yeah, like them killing themselves, like honorable suicide. But having like in the culture, having especially someone like the clan leader kill the predator that would be like absolute humiliation. Be seen as
Right.
his whole family name would be seen as weak. Oh, look at you! You didn't die honorably. You had to have your boss kill you for you. Dumb Yautja.
The Lost Tribe carried out his body disgracefully.
Like, just imagine, like, if Deshonda, a clan leader, like, had to have one of his other predators to like kill him.
I have to ask. Now that's you've read it and you've had some some opportunity to think about it. Using whatever metric you want, what would you rate this book?
On the 10-point scale, or how's it working?
5-point scale, 10-point scale.
You got to go with a 9.5 out of 10. You have minor gripes here and there, but overall, it's a pretty solid adaptation of a really, really good story.
I'm gonna have to go with Ken on that. I haven't read the comic in full, but I do think that from what I read, it is indeed like a 9.5. It's very strong.
Having not read any of the other Alien or Predator or AVP novels, I have no frame of reference. I think I'm a bit more conservative in my vote. I would give it 8 decapitated Hiroki heads out of a possible 10 decapitated Hiroki heads.
Yeah, that's pretty generous.
My main contention is that this could have been a longer novel.
And for sure.
I wish it was a longer novel.
Yeah, this novel could have easily been like 300 pages, 350 pages.
Yeah,
tops.
I thought the action was well represented. I thought what they really could have done if they had more pages to write is really delve into the psyche of the characters, including Deshonde and Machiko Noguchi. Right. And we just didn't really get as much of that as I would have wanted. Mm-hmm. So,
it just felt like they did the bare minimum for adapting the comic.
Yeah, for sure. I would even say that like they did above it, like a little bit above and beyond the bare minimum. But
yeah.
But I think that it overall was a good book. I would give it like a 8 out of 10 or a 4 out of 5, however you look at it.
Right.
Right.
It's like an A- for me.
That's fair. There's 2 questions I have. First question being, hold on, I'm brain leaking at this very moment. We were talking about the review, and then I began to brain leak. Oh God. Oh yeah. I was gonna ask Ken that the Alien novels, because majority of them, the Bantam ones, they're all novelizations of comics.
Yeah, and
are they all roughly short, or like what is their average length?
Average length for like a Bantam novelization is between 200 to like 290 pages.
So they're roughly about all like the same length.
Yeah, they're roughly all like the same length. And I did neglect to mention. Yeah, I didn't neglect to mention that all of the Bantam novels are connected in the same universe. Not just the Earth War trilogy.
That's awesome.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And my second question was that will we review the other books in the Michiko Noguchi saga,
Hopefully, if you guys do so wish, we can
like
do Berserker next.
and War,
Mhm.
and maybe Hunter's Planet is a special.
It's got a bonus.
Exactly.
Yeah, I could probably start reading Berserker in a couple weeks, in the new year, like early January, and then we could.
I gotta find me a copy.
Yeah, that's the big issue.
Right. Like some of these Bantam copies, like man, it's just like they go for like 30, 20 like US dollars.
I've seen
Which is
copies
like,
that are
bro.
like $200. It's crazy.
Well, I got my copy of Prey off of Thrift Books, and you
Oh,
both
God.
that
Yeah,
thing-
we know the story.
Oh god.
That shitty fucking copy looks like someone like ran it over with the car.
No, a predator tried to mate with it, just like threw it against the wall,
Fucking yeah, smashed it repeatedly. The
like
fucking hammer.
Magneto Alex just threw it
Exactly.
against the wall, and
Yeah. Got like fucked by Palpatine. Yeah.
yeah. Oh man,
Shout out, shameless plug. Go subscribe to Alex's channel.
yeah, I just realized he's a predator.
Yeah, he's a sexual deviant. He wants to fuck
I
Palpatine.
didn't say he was a sexual predator. I just said he was a predator because he's throwing things against the wall like the predators do when they're trying to mate.
No, Alex, if you're watching this, we love you. We love you,
Yeah,
Alex.
of course.
We love you, Alex.
It's
No
just
smoke.
funny. It's a funny
No
coincidence.
smoke. We love you. You ain't no sexual deviant. We love you.
But yeah, someone definitely threw my copy of Prey against the wall. There was I think there was like a hole in the back.
Yeah, there's a hole in the back.
Maybe someone just got so mad that they had to ship it all the way to Canada and just got fucking pissed and threw it against the wall. They're like, great, we gotta ship it to this fucking Canadian asshole. Let's just yeet.
All the way to Canada. It's for sure. Definitely that's the canonical ending that I go with.
It's
the canonical
the canonical ending to the alien universe is some guy driving all the way to Canada to deliver a book.
Just angrily hucks it across the border.
But Marcel. That's what happens, bro, when you buy acceptable, bro. Acceptable.
Poor Marcel.
There is nothing about my copy of Prey that is acceptable. Okay.
Nothing acceptable about that.
Any conceivable human metric. Does that book fit the term acceptable? I was basically holding it together with my hands. If I let go with one hand, then the novel would turn into dust.
Oh,
Disintegrate.
I actually completely forgot to mention something about Perry's whole gimmicks is that he uses martial arts stuff in his books.
Right.
Completely forgot to mention that. What did y'all think of that?
Yeah.
I enjoyed it.
I liked it.
Kind of like Stover.
Yeah.
Well,
there's a few authors that I read that do that kind of thing, and all it really makes me feel is, man, when I was Titus's age, I really should have gotten involved in martial arts.
Yeah. Marcel starting his own dojo.
MMA boxing.
That's right. I'm gonna do a Cobra Kai revival.
They're gonna have that Rocky montage of just you doing your vlog throughout your house.
Exactly, Marcel training. He's gonna train like Goku.
Oh.
So, do we have anything left to say about this book, or about the saga?
I mean, they must just say on the saga. We haven't. Besides Ken, of course. Like me and you, Marcel, we haven't read it. Anything else?
Yeah, you all have yet to be enlightened.
Conclusion. Yeah. We'll be awakened one day. What's up?
I had a question. Berserker and War, are those also comic adaptations?
Yeah. Yep.
Sweet.
Anything in the Bantam era is a comic adaptation, pretty much.
The good old days.
Yeah,
the other era would be the Titan books era.
Titan books, and
then no, Dark Horse, because the Dark Horse press stuff with
and then
yeah,
Titan books.
Yeah. The Dark Horse Press stuff is like nigh impossible to find. Besides like Forever Midnight, it's the only one that I can actually find, and it's the bad one.
All right, very cool. Yeah, I'm going to try and read all the comics, not all the comics, but I mean the comic adaptations before we talk about it next time, because I think it would create a more interesting discussion if we're able to compare it to what it's based on.
Mm-hmm.
I will try to hop onto that as well, reading the comics. But it's like there's so many AVP comics, like in between War and like the first arc is just like, oh boy,
So much.
it's a bit jarring. Because then there's like the Dark Horse, was it extra or special stuff? Is there like AVP stuff included in there too? So I'm just like,
Was it all collected in the omnibuses?
It might be.
Yeah.
Yeah, I might try and get myself physical copies of the omnibuses. You know, it's funny. I think I told you this, Ken. Back in the day, like maybe even, less than a decade ago, I would be at a comic shop or even at a bookstore, and I would see these AVP omnibuses there for like $20, and I would just gloss over them.
Just like,
I'd kick myself in the face.
Damn. That's just how it goes, I guess, in life.
Foolish, Marcel.
Yeah, I would see a bunch of the Star Wars Dark Horse omnibuses too, and I again glossed over them and ended up having to pay top dollar for them, over the course of the pandemic just to complete my comic collection. And sucks because things are more expensive these days than they used to be. So
yeah.
Marcel, you mean to tell me that you do not have Tales of the Jedi, the omnibus?
I have every single individual issue of Tales of the Jedi.
Dang. Bro, I don't even need the omnibus for real.
Yeah.
I just have the omnibuses.
I have a couple of the trade paperbacks. I have Dark Lords of the Sith. But I would really love the Sith War. I think that's the next trade that I want to get for that run.
You're going to have to pay for that one.
That's fine.
It's like $500 or something.
Money is no object when it comes to Tales of the Jedi.
True. Too based.
Starting to sound like Ken Marcel.
Yeah.
Keep bragging on me for spending like lots of money on books.
Dropping big
Cope and
bucks on
seed,
books.
Titus. Cope and seed.
Cope and seed.
Yeah. I'll continue to see you.
Just jealous because I make more money than you.
Yeah. I don't even make money. Yeah.
Yeah. Don't make money.
Yeah.
So we should all get people to subscribe to Titus's channel so that he can start monetizing it, because
exactly
we need him to be able to buy things so that we can
we have to have Titus start his Patreon.
So I can get big bucks like Ken.
Yeah, the uncut like live streams where you don't hear us talking about like the horrible things we shit talk other Star Wars YouTubers.
Yeah, exactly.
A full 3-hour length video on every Steve Perry pervy moment.
Quality autism
Debunked. Yeah.
Pay top dollar for the exclusive quality autism debunked. I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, I think that really just marks our conclusion. Like we just kind of just messing around from there on, but it really marks the conclusion of the song.
Read this book, as Ken said at the beginning of the stream.
Read this book.
You must read it.
You must.
It's peak. It's very much peak.
And it's a short read. It took me like 2 weeks to read it, but I read like the first 100 pages over, 13 days, and then the last 130 pages over like the course of 3 hours. So not even 2 hours.
Exactly. It's very fun.
Very fun book.
Indeed. Very insightful. Very, very chattily. So, well,
I guess if you didn't like the AVP movies, then read this novel.
That is your alternative.
If you don't want to read, well, fuck you. I'm kidding. Don't. Do whatever
Ken's
you
being
want.
wholehearted. He's calling you a dunce if you don't want to read it.
If you don't want to read it,
you're a fake fan.
And Palpatine will be recording an audiobook of it for your pleasure.
Oh,
in the year 2027.
Oh god. He's got a professional microphone and everything. Music, sound effects.
Titus doing the sound effects.
It's gonna be like because I plug into Alien Theory. Subscribe to him. He's a Giga Chad.
Oh yeah, subscribe to Alien Theory.
He does readings of like chapters of Prey, and
Oh, that's really cool.
he has like music, but it's like ambient. It's ambience music, if anything.
Yeah,
It's
gotta
not like
avoid
Star Wars Theory
copyright
where he just
strike.
plays random crap in the background.
Well,
Wow,
would y'all like to say anything?
Just next on
Where
our
we go?
list would be Berserker. Aliens
Berserker
Berserker. We all
will-
got to read that.
Berserker will come next.
That's on the plan. Well, we haven't had anyone literally watching. Like, I think there's one person that they didn't comment, but there's one person that was in here.
Ooh.
But is what it is. Anyone that goes back and watches this, I hope that you enjoyed what you listened to, and hopefully, this entices you to want to pick up the book. Preferably, don't get an acceptable copy like Marcel.
No,
Either
don't
get
be
the
don't be
reprint.
Marcel. Just
Quote
get
unquote
a good copy.
acceptable. Yeah.
No human should have to read that copy. Only a psychopath would read that.
There should be consumer protection laws against this kind of thing. It's false advertising.
True.
There should be a new listing for below
Oh
average.
man, it's like that time where I got the new Empire Volume 7 Epic Collection, new, like it just released, and then like the binding just fell off when I opened it. I'm like, cool.
Dawn of the Jedi
sucks.
type beat. Do you know about that era?
Cope and seethe, Ken.
Yeah.
Like the Tales of the Jedi Epic Collection, Volume 1, the Dawn of Jedi comics. Like, there's a big defect going around when that first dropped, where like the pages would just fall out of the binding, like the glue would just come apart.
Fuck. God.
But that got rectified.
Thank God.
Well, this concludes the stream. I've said this like 3 times already, but this is our conclusion. Thank you, Ken and Marcel, for joining me
Of course.
tonight, so we could discuss this master class of a novel.
This masterpiece written by Steve Perry and his daughter, Stefani Perry.
Indeed. Well, bye now.
Peace.
Take care.
Mabuki.